Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Big Sky. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's focus on Ronald's side of things. Fact of the matter is him getting, a new big rig and everything. And, claiming to himself, oh, I'm a good boy now, Mom. You don't have to worry about it. I'm in love. I found someone who understands me. I don't care if you don't accept this. Obviously, Ronald has never been right in the head, and obviously he's continuing to spiral a little bit, but it's I guess the freedom of the open road, that guy was talking to him about, maybe that's why I'm why go the trouble of, to be fair, he had to abandon his last rig, and maybe he's grown attached to it, but it's also he did a lot of shady stuff with that, so I guess maybe, that kind of coincides with what Lindor was talking about, that whole aspect about certain aspects of his personality. He has to kind of, little things that he has to keep doing, and maybe having a truck is one of those things because it makes him, feel important, powerful, whatever the case may be. But it's he's got that, walks in on a conversation between Scarlett and her sister. Mary's very suspicious. It's I think I've seen him somewhere before. She didn't go into specifics. Maybe at that time she wasn't aware where she saw Ronald from. She just knew she was. It's just I had this bad feeling. But Scarlett's yeah, but you just like me, lonely and hurt, because that way you can come in and kind of play the role of mother or whatever. Then they bring up her ex Steve, and then you have Ronald as Arthur coming in and saying the most creepy thing of yeah, you know what they say about the person in the middle of the photo, that they're going to be the first one to die. It's and Scarlett's laughing, that's so creepy. And it's why would you say, it's you don't even try to pretend to be a normal human being sometimes. It's just just the stuff that comes out Ronald's mouth. But also it's it's supposed to be it's meant to make Mary uneasy, because it's oh, you opened my business? Oh, I'm a because she's oh, let me take a photo of you and Scarlett together. He's no. The fact is, all these hackers and stuff like that, heard of deep fakes. The fact of the matter is what they could do. Oh, it's so scary. It's no, you just don't want your picture out there for people to find out. Obviously, I thought it was interesting that he decided, I guess he figured it's all going to work out in the end. I'm going to take care of anything anyway, so go ahead. The very less suspicious thing would have been oh, sure, no problem. But it's oh, no, you know what, let's all take a photo together. But it's just Ronald, you're so, once again, doesn't know how to be a well-adjusted human. Makes sense considering he's not a well-adjusted human. But, Ronald ended up taking Scarlett's phone and gets her message of something's not right about Arthur, call me back. And so he ends up confronting her, tasing her, wrapping her up in a rug, and trying to pump her for information who else did you tell about your suspicions of me? And she's no one. He looks through her computer, turns out she's contacted Ginny and Cassie's, business, and it's it's liars, blah blah blah. It's which is you are so deranged in the head you don't even recognize hypocrisy, because you're talking about her being a liar. It's you are a liar. You're not Arthur. You're not this person you're claiming to be. But I guess for him, it's no, it's different circumstances. I'm not lying. This is a new me. I'm a good boy now. Whatever the case may be, he didn't appreciate her calling him a monster, so he sliced her up and killed her. So it's once again, oh, don't worry, Mom, I clean up my messes. It's once again, he's like a kid in his mind. Like I said, Ronald's kind of going off the deep end. Lindor and Cassie had showed up, which they had some interesting conversations, because obviously, he, is trying to get to know her, so he was kind of pumping her for information about how old her son was, and is his dad still in the picture? Obviously, we know, and she ends up telling him about her son's dad, Andrew, dying in the line of duty. So he opens up about he lost someone that was very important to him, and it was something that he could have prevented, and because of that, he's been driving on the road until he kind of reached the end. And he was saying, to the place that he found, there was a poster that said, when death smiles at you, all you can do is smile back. And he said that saved his life. So I guess for him, it's he was already probably at the end of his rope. It sounds like he might have been in a place where he might have tried to kill himself maybe, and that poster or whatever, that gave him some sense of solace, and that's what kept him going. Sharing with some of his, you know, because it turns out the person that was taken from him was his sister. She was taken, like, he sent her into the store, but then, like, it took her a long time to come out, and he had a bad feeling about it. And it's like, they caught the guy that did it, but it's like, they never found her body. Never got that bit of solace. Because obviously that's a conversation in this episode because of the Blake thing, but, you know, and what obviously that brings up about, you know, Cody for Jenny, and it's obviously not just Jenny, it's also, Cassie, which that also triggers, you know, Andrew for her. It's like, you know, she had talked about, like, her dad had moved in because she's like, I didn't get out of bed for like a week after Andrew died, and my dad came in, moved in, did all this stuff for me, but told me, like, I have to kind of move on with my life. But for her, it's like, you can't forget the, like, the good that came with some of that. Yes, you have to try and move past the pain, but don't repress everything, because there was good. And it's like, if you get rid of all the good too, you kind of stop living, you know? So that was her way of kind of like, that's how she dealt with things, and that was her kind of way of speaking to Jenny. Because I think Jenny, like, obviously the Cody thing is still such a fresh wound for both of them, and obviously this whole Blake thing, I think, you know, it's like, oh, well, we couldn't help Cody, and I think in Jenny's case, it's like, at the very least, I can try and help, you know, Blake, that maybe, it's not the same thing, but maybe on some level for her, by helping him, it kind of makes up for, in her mind, not being able to help Cody. But, circling back, Lindor and Cassie end up making their way into Mary's place, but by the time they do, Ronald's already left with Mary's body. And I was curious, like, the moment they went in there and they found that freezer closed, I was like, did he do that? It's like, did he have time to really do all that? But it's like, okay, we end up finding out, oh, there's a body in there, and I'm assuming that's Steve, because Scarlett earlier in the episode was like, you don't have to worry about Steve, he's not in the picture, like, ever won't be coming back. I'm like, is he dead or something? Or did that just kind of like meant to kind of imply like that, but in actuality he's just out of it? It's like, oh no, he's dead. So that's the complicated thing, that like Mary is up here hunting down all this stuff about Arthur, or rather Ronald, not even knowing her sister had hidden her ex's dead body in her freezer. Not because I would assume, like, the fact that she's so worried about it, I'm assuming she wouldn't know about, she can't know about Steve if she's going after Ronald so hard, essentially. But not unless she is. If she did know about Steve and went after Ronald that hard, it seemed a little, but I mean, maybe that's also why she was so intent on, because, like I said, I don't think she knew, which is just kind of crazy that body's been, like, how did Scarlett, like, justify that? I don't know. But it's like, it kind of showcased, like, once again, as the episodes have gone by, we've gotten more and more of a twisted side to Scarlett, and now we find out, oh, she's a lot like Ronald. That'd be ironic at the end of the day if she ends up killing Ronald, because we don't know what the Steve situation was, whether he was like an abusive husband or like whatever the case may be, why she did what she did. But like the fact is that she was kind of like, yeah, you don't have to worry about it. He's like never going to be in a picture again, like ever. She even refers to him just kind of as a sperm donor, so it sounds like Steve wasn't the best guy. So it's now setting up, like, you know, Ronald thinks he found a good person, someone that understands him. I was like, yeah, to a certain extent, because it seems like she's just as crazy as you are. I think that's such an interesting twist, like I said, but it's like as the episodes are going on, we've seen her be a little more demented, and it was like, yeah. So I'm curious how Ronald's going to feel about that. I'm sure it's going to be like, oh, you're a terrible human being like I am too? That's cool. We're a match made in heaven. Like him eventually revealing who he really is. Because I think this could definitely be like a Bonnie and Clyde situation, what they're setting up. At the very least, like, oh, she finds out the truth about Ronald. It's like, oh, okay. For all we know, she might even get jealous of like, whoa, so who are all these women you kidnapped and stuff like that? You know, but it's like probably thinking like, wait, you've got a dark side, Ronald? I've got a dark side. She talked about, like, you know, she likes control, and once again, just that she's super creepy, just like Ronald is. So I think it's gonna be obviously a very match made in heaven type of circumstances. But we'll have to wait and see as, you know, Lindor and Cassie delve deeper into this. Like I said, I'm sure it's going to be revealed to be Steve's body. So that's going to be interesting because eventually this is going to tie them back to like looking into Scarlet, like, hey, Scarlet, and they'll probably find out, like, they'll probably connect Steve to Scarlet, and then eventually find out about Ronald, or rather Arthur, you know, so we'll see. So there's that side of things. Obviously, picking up immediately with last episode, you had the Blake situation where it's like, I was like, please tell me he's not dead. Like, is he actually dead? And it's like, John Wayne, he's like, shit, crap, Blake. And he ends up, like, running away. I guess he was getting what he needed to, like, trying to decide what he was going to do with it. Cheyenne comes over, and I'm like, Cheyenne's like, okay, Blake. She picks up his body, ends up taking, like, Cole's belt buckle from, like, the grave and disappear. I was thinking, like, okay, Blake's maybe still alive. Like, the way she was acting first, I was like, okay, maybe he's not. But then, like, she took his body and everything, so I was like, okay, good, maybe he's still alive. And then, like, you know, Horst and John and Rand find his body later, and I'm like, so she just moved his body? I was like, that's weird. Because the moment that happened and she didn't get anyone else involved, I was like, oh, Cheyenne's doing exactly what I was afraid she was going to do. Try to take advantage of the situation. I was like, damn it. Because everyone in that family is twisted. It seems like the only person that was, yes, everyone in that family's got their issues, and Blake had his, but it seems like he's the only person in that family that's not twisted. Because I've been feeling like Cheyenne just, like, that was legitimately one of my concerns, that rather than doing the right thing, she'd try and take advantage of the situation. And lo and behold, what does she do? You know, she sees all the pain her mom's going through. She knows the truth of, like, he didn't kill himself, but she set it up to make it seem like he killed himself. John Wayne's probably like, he's definitely like, what happened here? But obviously it doesn't correlate in his head that think like, like he probably thought like, maybe like Blake wasn't dead, managed to get away, and he came to this cliff and ended up falling to his death. So maybe that's John Wayne's kind of explanation for it. Well, what's even interesting is like Rand taking off his boots because it's like, you know, it's bad luck to die in your boots or something like that. And despite everything, Horst's issues with his son is still like, you were a good boy, yada, yada, yada. Really quickly circling back, like, Rosie, like, said that she tried to tell the sheriff the truth, but the sheriff didn't want to listen to her, even tell her there would be repercussions. You know, once again, like, that family has run this town. Like, why everyone's so scared of him? What does he have on the sheriff? Because even later on, he's like, do you want me to rule this as a suicide? And Horst is like, because it is a suicide, you need to rule it as a suicide. He's like, yeah, sure. It's like, the fact of the matter is that he even had to throw that out there, because I guess immediately investigating, he's like, yeah, this doesn't make sense, but hey, you want me to rule as suicide? I'll do it for you, boss, type of thing. And it's like, I guess Horst didn't think of any much of it, because the sad thing is, Horst isn't going to look too much into it anyway, but, you know, sad thing is, he legitimately does just think Blake ended up killing himself, which is, like I said, that's just sad. Like, you know, he asked Jenny for help. This is someone from Jenny's past. Like I said, like, you know, I strongly believe helping him in her mind was her way of, like, kind of making up for, like, not being able to help Cody. It's not like there's anything she could have done, but I think it's just not being able to save Cody and not being able to save Blake. I think it just kind of weighs on her, like, you know, like, what can she do, you know? I think that's kind of like what they're potentially setting up. But I was surprised when Cheyenne ended up confronting John, being like, hey, you're welcome. And it's like, you know, she's there trying to be there for her mom, knowing the truth, but it's like, yeah, telling this story about like how, like, oh yeah, you used to paint my nails different colors. Blake thought they were so pretty and he let me paint his toenails. It would be like our secret. It's like she's saying all this. She brought, because to be fair, she resented Blake. Blake was like, yeah, you're the brother she was tight with, but it's still a thing of, you left me here with all of this, and you kind of come back and kind of want to do what you want to do, but it's like, no, I'm the one that had to stick around and deal with everything. I had to deal with Mom, I had to deal with Dad, I had to deal with Blake, I had to deal with Rand, I had to deal with John Wayne, while you got to just escape. This is all I have, so I need things to work out. So she's basically blackmailing John to be like, hey, I know what's what. You better start showing me some respect. You think you're just going to run things. And he's like, when Dad dies, like, things aren't going to be, things are going to change, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, Cheyenne knows the truth. And, like, everything she's doing is just because she's trying to get hers at the end. Yes, she's not as culpable. She's the only one that hasn't really done anything illegal. Granted, she did move Blake's body. She knows the truth. But for her, it's like every move she's making is just for the purpose of trying to better her own situation. Because when she's talking to Jenny later on, And, you know, Jenny's like, okay, like, you know, trying to get information. It's like, okay, Blake, the fact of the matter is he didn't do it. What happened with Rosie, it was actually Rand and John were there. They drugged her and everything. But then, like, Cheyenne's like, well, Blake's dead, so there's not much. It's like, you won't, like, the fact is you made, because that's what I was saying, like, she brought it up later on saying, like, I don't think Blake did it. I don't think you did it. But then, like, when she was talking to Cassie, she was like, maybe he did it. If he did, he's a piece of shit. Like, it's just like, and now it's a thing of, well, he's dead. It's not like the truth can really matter on that front. I mean, I guess I guess that kind of fits with the fact is that she's covering up his death and just, you know, it's like she doesn't seem as, at least John Wayne had some form of remorse that immediately disappeared, but she was kind of sad for a minute. Then it's just kind of like, oh well, Mom, remember our whole thing, you know, that the rules of like, you know, you told me I could be whatever I wanted to be, and it was like that rodeo butt kicking like queen or whatever. It's like, yeah, you don't cry, you treat dolls with respect, you don't let men control you or something like that. Now, those were kind of the rules, and she's telling her mom to kind of follow those because her mom is slapping the shit out of both Horst as well as the sheriff, because it's like, I know, because for her it's like, I blame you, Horst, because you ended up killing our son. Like, whatever happened, if he managed to kill him, if he did kill himself, it's because of you, everything you put them through, everything you put this family through. And he kind of calls her out for being like, oh, you're a pill popping drunk or something like that. So, but circling back to it, she ends up mentioning Horst. No, God, sorry. She ends up mentioning Cole's name to Jenny. So it's like, she just wants Jenny to investigate so Jenny can unravel all this stuff, because if she can take down John Wayne and Rand, at the end of the day, everything goes to her. Like, she'll be the last sibling standing. So it's not like she really cares about, like, oh, poor Cole, or this is what Blake died for. It's like, no, this is just another thing I can use to further my circumstances. Like I said, she's so twisted, and for her, it's like she needs to win. It's like, she kind of has nothing outside of this, so like this is all she has, you know. It's like she's been biding her time, like listening to the rest, having to like fall in line to the rest of the men in her family, whether it is, you know, because originally this was all going to be Blake's, but now it's like John Wayne's, and it's like John Wayne and Rand both stand in her way. She's like, I'm a white lion, and she's doing like the whole roaring thing. So like, once again, she's not in the best state of mind either, along with her siblings. So, which Rand also kept a piece of Cole, because he's like, yeah, I just want to keep a piece, which John was like, no, don't do it, don't be stupid, and he keeps a piece either way. But he's telling him like, hey, remember, I've got your back. Blake, he was going to turn on you. And Rand's like, is that why he killed himself? It's like, just forget about it. I'm curious how Rand's going to feel knowing that it was John that killed Blake. It's like, you know, it's like, well, yes, he protected you in the end, but he still killed your brother, so that might, you know, shake your faith in him a little bit later on. We'll see. But I mean, to be fair, like, John's done a lot to protect Rand, so maybe Rand won't look at it like that. I'm also surprised Cheyenne's like, well, you did kill our brother, but it's like, right, what are you going to do? Kill me? It's like, okay, good. Because it's also like, she has contingencies set up, because she's making it seem like, oh, like, I didn't tell Jenny anything, even though I gave Jenny a huge lead to kind of follow through on. And obviously Denise is looking into it for her, so once again, that family is all kinds of screwed up, to the point Jenny's talking to Angela, trying to get information out of her, because he tried talking to Rosie's dad, but like, Rosie was kind of hinting to something that like her dad could say that could expose that family, but he decides not to say anything. Because basically for him, it's like, I was working for that family for 25 years. The fact is that there's a lot of terrible that comes with it, and it's like, if you get too involved, like for him, it's like, I don't want the truth about anything coming out, because that family will come after my daughter. So I am, at the end of the day, doing what is best for her by not saying anything. But I'm wondering, is it connected to this Cole thing? I mean, we do see all those other oil drums. They ended up putting Cole's body in one of them. So it's like, yeah, it's like they were going to, like, Blake was going to expose not only this Cole thing, but everything else. So I'm like, is that where the rest of the bodies are buried? It might not be specifically Cole. It might be the other bodies that might be what he was aware of, because maybe like Rosie's dad helped dispose of that. I don't know. obviously, like, we have at least one body amongst those drums. Who's to say there's not more, that there's not a body in each one of them, that's not, like, their special dumping ground? If so, like, this goes far, far back. Or, once again, maybe it's some other shady stuff. I'd assume those are dead bodies, but, you know, maybe Cole's body is the only dead body. Whatever the case, one body's enough. Granted, if there's more there, it shows that this family's definitely got a pattern. Whether it was, like, Horst or whether it was Rand. I'm thinking more so Horst. It seems like Cole might be Rand's only victim. He talks about the fact that he doesn't really remember too much of that night, but, who knows? But Jenny's talking to Angela, and it's like, right, here's some evidence proving that Blake wasn't the one involved with Rosie's situation, that here's something that the sheriff, like, changed the reports and everything. Even brought up the fact is, he changed Blake's report to a suicide, or at least was getting the Emmy to, like, cover it up as one. So she doesn't know for sure that it's not, but it's like, yeah, it's hint, like, obviously knowing, like, there's definitely something more to it because of the way the sheriff's been acting. For her, like, it's, once again, it's like, why is this family so scary to everyone? It's like, she doesn't really get a chance to really get into it, but because Rand and John, I mean, it might have just been Rand, because that doesn't seem like a John move, that seemed like a Rand move of just, like, busting through the hotel with his vehicle, trying to kill both of them. That's not the smart thing to do. Well, to be fair, you kind of run things in that town, so the sheriff's going to look the other way. But it's kind of a hard thing to just kind of look the other way, especially because it would have drawn, like, outside attention, like Lindor. The last thing you need is him back up in your business, like getting, like, you know, other U.S. Marshals and other, like, federal, like, government agencies involved in their whole business. So, a lot of interesting things went down in this episode. I'm curious to see where all of this ends up taking us. I would assume Angela and Jenny are okay, hopefully, but this is going to be, Angela's going to be less likely to talk now, because she was so careful trying to make sure, like, the sheriff didn't know where I was. To be fair, I'm sure he only did that because it's like, right, they wanted to confront Jenny because they didn't want, well, not unless they got word about Angela being there talking too, but I think it was just more so Jenny. You're trying to kill her, but I guess it's also meant to, like, set an example and making a point of, like, hey, get out of town. This is our business. She was kind of warned to get out of town already anyway, but like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.